year birthday of Du Bois. That was me just banging the paper on my microphone. My apologies. I just so excited to not have to talk about the murder of unarmed people for at least a couple minutes, unless you have something about Du Bois to talk about.
It's all connected.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
It's all connected because Aaron, the question of suffering is one thing. The question of solutions to suffering, and so often we're connected to seeing everything from the standpoint of the boundaries of the United States.
I hear you.
And as you know, Du Bois was a Pan-Africanist and an internationalist, and he believed in this idea of the anti-colonial and anti-white supremacist struggle on a world scale. And that's what we're doing with Du Bois' 150th anniversary.
You got Patrick calling us back now, Doc. You talk about unique challenges with African Americans.
I would love for Patrick to call us back.
He gonna say, now you talking about black people worldwide being oppressed, but one time I was in a store and I got followed.
Well, everybody can be educated and re-educated, and that's what we're doing here.
Appreciate it.
And for Patrick and all of the listeners, in fact, I would just like to tell you that on July 6th and 7th, we're doing a 2-day symposium entitled The Struggle for Peace and the Emancipation of Women of the Dark Races.
Right on time with that.
The Emancipation of Women of the Dark Races.
Where's that going to be at?
And it's at the Church of the Advocate, and it's focusing upon Nina Simone, Winnie Mandela, Coretta Scott King, Shirley Graham Du Bois, and Indira Gandhi, the first woman prime minister of India. So,
you get the time for that?
Yeah. We start at 6:00 p.m. on Friday, and we resume at 10:45 on Saturday at the Church of the Advocate, and we start with Nina Simone, this great revolutionary artist, this great activist in the arts. But today I want to read from a text that we've read from before in the past here, The World in Africa, published in 1946 by Du Bois. It's kind of a continuation of something he was doing in 1929. He publishes a novel. He writes novels, these great historical political novels, very 19th century rather than just 20th century in their form and the genre. And he writes this novel in 1928 entitled The Dark Princess. And it's a allegory. It's a story about the relationships between Africa and Asia. And he calls for, in that novel, what he called the unity of Pan-Africa and Pan-Asia. And so in The World in Africa, he continues that and gives the historical foundation for Africa's role in Asia and in the development of Asian civilization. So let me just read this. This is from chapter 9. The connection between Asia and Africa has always been close. There was probably actual land connection in prehistoric times, and the black race appears in both continents in the earliest records, making it doubtful which continent is the point of origin. Certainly, the Negroid people of Asia have played a leading part in Asia's history. The blacks of Melanesia have scoured the seas, and Charles Tauber makes them inventors of one of the world's first written languages. The ethnic history of India would seem to be first a prehistoric substratum of Negrillos, or the small black people that originated in Central Africa. Then the pre-Dravidians, the blacks of Asia, a taller, larger type of Negro. Then the Dravidians, Negroes with some mixture of Mongoloid and later of Caucasoid stocks. The Dravidian Negroes laid the base of Indian culture thousands of years before the Christian era. The Rig Veda, the ancient sacred text of India, tells of the fierce struggle between these whites and blacks for the mastery of India. It sings of Aryan deities who rushed furiously into the battle against the black foe. The hymns praise Indra, the white deity, for having killed 50,000 blacks, piercing the citadel of the enemy and forcing the blacks to run out in distress, leaving all their food and belongings. The blacks, under their renowned leader, Krishna, tells that the black the black fought back with valor. The whites long held the conquered blacks in caste servitude, but eventually the color line disappeared before commerce and industry, intermarriage, and defense against enemies from without. The Ganges region caste disappeared. The whites enlisted in the service of the blacks and fought under the Negro chiefs. The famous Battle of the 10 Kings, one of the leading Aryan chiefs, was a Negro. Nashville said the Aryan invader, whatever class he might belong to, was in the habit of taking the women of the country as wives, and hence no caste, not even that of Brahma, can claim to have sprung from Aryan ancestors. Today, some of the Brahmins are as black and as flat-nosed as early Negro chiefs. The culture of the black Dravidians underlines the whole culture of India, whose greatest religious leader is often limned as black and curly-haired. Now, I'll just stop there, and maybe we have some callers, but what Du Bois does in this world in Africa is, I think, lays the foundation for a anti-white supremacy, anti-colonialist historiography, the history of the world written from the standpoint of Africa, even the history of Asia and of Western Asia written from the standpoint of Africa. And he points out, for example, that in the ancient text of India, the Buddha was black, the Brahma was dark, so on.
No, definitely. I even asked when I was in China, I said, why does the Buddha have bantu knots? Because none of y'all got nappy hair or hair that kinks up. And they looked at me like I had 3 heads. But I was looking at their head like, you can't get that hairstyle.
Well,
even when you're on vacation, try to get those fake cornrows. They don't hold in for more than a day.
Well, in this text, The World in Africa, Du Bois says of the 30 disciples that took Buddhism to China, 10 of them were Africans. So that might explain it.
Yeah, that explains the bantu knots, right? Mo from North Philly calling in. Thank you for waking up with Word, Mo.
Yeah, Mark. Hello, three questions. Like, concerning Du Bois, right? He spoke out against South Africa, right? When he was around.
Yes,
okay,
definitely.
when we was out there protesting against South Africa, right? Didn't the city council of Philadelphia and the Congressional Black Caucus, when they putting about sanctions and divestments against South Africa?
Yes, definitely.
Well, can't they do the same thing when it comes to Israel?
I hope so. I definitely hope so. In many states, they're trying to outlaw any boycott movement against Israel. But I hope the protest continues because the Palestinian cause is very near to the struggle of black people in this country.
Yeah, because these 300 black clergy, so they should be the ones leading the charge for divestment and sanctions against Israel. Because that's a moral stand. Dr. King will be against that nonsense. He not only be at the border in Texas, but he also be over in Gaza Strip.
Yeah, most of the great leaders of the African American people struggle have stood with the Palestinian people.
Malcolm too, right?
Yes, Malcolm, definitely Malcolm, definitely Muhammad Ali, definitely Coretta Scott King. So Angela Davis, to name another. Yeah, most of our people have stood with the Palestinian struggle and still do. But there are other misleaders of our people who, stand with injustice, sadly and unfortunately.
Yeah, because it's a publication, I think it's called RSN, May 5th, 2018, they would say that human rights don't apply to the Gaza Strip. That's the same position South Africa took when they were shooting our people down. The same exact thing.
Absolutely.
Same exact thing. And that needs to be dealt with. Put these Negroes in city council and the Congressional Black Caucus, put all of them on the spot and see where they're loyal to. Are they tied to the Jews' purse string, or are they going to stand up and speak against evil?
Yeah,
because you shouldn't be in office, man. As far as you, Professor, I like this show because you don't cut people dial down, the mic off, and you let people speak. All they have cursing or disrespecting, right? You got the best show on the air with me. I got to give it to you, bro.
No, thank you very much for the compliment. Yeah. Also, thank you, Brother Mo, for calling in. And I want to say that recently there was conversation with Jake Tapper and Keith Ellison, where he gave him the Farrakhan litmus test again.
Yeah, right.
And they had an exchange. You know, he's already addressed it a few times, even in writing. Basically, with same thing with Obama, where he repudiated and denounced and all that stuff they try to make us do in order to achieve certain levels of power. And I say it on the air all the time. What's a deal breaker for us? And I think we need, as a community, to issue some of these litmus tests, at least internally, like the brother Mo was saying. We need to pose these challenges to people and have them go on the record and say who they stand for, especially when they propose to stand for us, and put in this larger context of people that stand for us, what type of stances they took.
You know, that's a very interesting question. I think that a turn in the course of our liberation struggle occurred in the late 70s and early 80s when we decided, or some of us decided, that protest was over and politics or electoral politics was the order of the day. And we have for the last almost 40 years been pursuing a Democratic Party-centered electoral strategy, which has gotten us very, very little except a few people in high places getting paid a large amount of money. And they regularly betray the very people that put them in office. Now, I think we're coming to the end of that era and that thinking in our history. The reason I think it's the case, because if you look at voter turnout, the last primary here in the city of Philadelphia, no more than 16% of eligible voters turned out to vote, which says to me that the masses of people are looking for another strategy, which I think would be the return to protest and what they used to call street heat and street action. And as you put it, we need to come forward with our program, unmediated by any outside forces. That's right.
George Soros money and nothing like that.
George Soros or anybody else.
Keep your bag, George. We're going to do this one by ourselves. One of the things I thought of this morning when they talked about Alexandria, we'll talk about it after, but the victory in New York, because she described herself as a democratic socialist. And you were the first people I thought about, so I want to get your comments. Right after the break. I know, that's what I'm saying. I want you to give us some context, you know. Okay, so I'm Aaron Smith. She's Coase's super producer. He's Jay Scott taking over Technology 2 T's. And we're live in studio with Dr. Anthony Martell, and he's going to give us some additional context about this recent victory in New York, and maybe even how he feels about Ben Jealous and, you know, just politics in general, and put it in context with the writings of Du Bois when we come back. And we thank you for waking up with Word, y'all.
Hi, this is Dr. Karen Nichols, Chief Medical Officer for Keystone VIP Choice, with some information to help seniors live the most productive life possible. We want you to know that we understand that growing older can be difficult to accept and does not always come easily. Sadly, many seniors with mental health concerns are reluctant to seek medical attention, which could cure or alleviate their symptoms and return them to their previous level of functioning. Why? Many older people don't understand mental illnesses or acknowledge that they even exist. However, many of these illnesses can be accurately diagnosed and treated. If you are a senior, you should not be afraid to seek evaluations and treatments that can return you to a productive and happy life. Unfortunately, many seniors are reluctant to seek the help that could return them to their previous lifestyle. If you've made consistent efforts to improve your mental and emotional health and you still don't feel good, then it's time to seek professional help. Keystone VIP Choice is committed to helping our friends and neighbors get the care they need with the dignity and service they deserve, and believes nothing is more important than the health of our seniors and their families.
For more information about Keystone VIP Choice and how we can help you get extra benefits, please give us a call at 1-877-690-0694.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy. The blended family is the family that comes together like his family, her family, and now their family. This can be beautiful, but a few therapy sessions could really help to make things better. If your car sputters and keeps shutting off, wouldn't you take it to a place for repairs? Sure you would. Your family is more important than your broken down car. Go get some counseling, especially if you are a blended family. Some of his family, your family, and now the whole big family. Make sure there is prayer for all. We're on the move. Sing it.
now, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, Independent Black Media.
Independent Black Media, 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURDradio.com. Listen live anytime and log on. Get your membership. Get down with the get down. I am Aaron Smith, the rapping professor. She is Quasi, the super producer. Put some respect on her name. He is J. Scott, Two T's co-producer, taking over technology. And we are live in studio with Dr. Anthony Montero talking about Du Bois on his 150th year anniversary of his birth. And at the break, we were talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who won in New York, and this primary was big, and it was an upset. And she said, I triggered the first primary in 14 years. And she was talking about the news media, even up to the point of election, was not even saying her name. They were reporting an opponent, and she was saying that you're going to know my name soon, and we are going to come for you. And she said this is a major victory for LGBT, for women, for working people, and she is advocating free health care. She's advocating higher education be subsidized. She's advocating separating big money from politics, and also the ending of ICE, the Immigration Enforcement Services. And she prides herself on being a democratic socialist. Right. And I wanted you to talk about your own political affiliation and give your academic perspective on this victory and what it means and what you feel about it.
Yes, and congratulations to her, her supporters, and the people of New York. But I like to look at it systemically. This is another stone in the unraveling of the two-party system. The Republican Party was effectively killed by Donald Trump. And I think as a party, it is pretty much dead. I think
that's ironic you say that, because so many people say, Obama did this, Obama did that. But like you're saying, time will probably say that Donald Trump did more.
There's no question
to
about
destabilize
it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but it was not Donald Trump the individual. Donald Trump the
ideology.
No, Donald Trump the politician who tapped into a deep alienation among working white people who are experiencing, as we know here in Philadelphia, opioid addictions, poverty, homelessness. The statistics for Philadelphia, something like 42% of black people are in poverty. We're used to that. But the fact of the matter is that almost 34% of white Philadelphians are in poverty. And
now, do you know by chance what that was maybe 10 years ago?
I don't know.
What kind of jump in the numbers are we talking?
I think we're talking about something quite dramatic. When white people begin to experience poverty, therefore not upward mobility, we're facing a kind of crisis, what they call the legitimacy of the system among white folk. Now, black people have been experiencing that for decades. We know. But the collapse of the Republican Party and now the unraveling of the Democratic Party. You mentioned Keith Ellison. Well, they gave Keith Ellison the vice chairmanship of the National Democratic Party. He was a Bernie Sanders supporter, and he was being seen as possible chair of the party. Well, they put a Hillary Clinton mainstream establishment person in there, Perez. But the fact of the matter is the unraveling continued. There cannot be any unity between forces that are representative of Hillary Clinton's line of thinking, that is warfare and austerity and lying to the people
and big money in politics.
You cannot find a point of unity between that and the anger of the people who vote Democratic. So I'm saying we're looking at a possible end to the two-party system in the United States. Now, you were asking me about democratic socialism.
Yeah, and how you feel
socialism.
About this?
Well, I feel good that she is a person prepared to say that she's outside the mainstream.
I hear you.
But the question becomes, what do you do in mobilizing the people in the streets after the election? And I'm not talking, and forgive me if I upset anybody, I'm not talking about the Maxine Waters type, the Congressional Black Caucus types who can go on television or social media and say things. We're talking about people, and she's a young woman who can go to the grassroots, use politics for real social change, not just to get the Democratic mainstream back in office in 2020.
No, I hear you.
Which it doesn't look like the Democrats are going to win in 2020. It's interesting. So that's what I would say.
Oh, I had a shock face on. The listeners couldn't see that.
and you know, just to be very transparent, because I know you want me to address
that's
this.
why we bring you on.
I'm somewhat to the left and have always been to the left of social democracy.
I hear you.
Because too often social democracy talks about social reform at home, but don't attack the military budget. In that sense, I am a Du Boisian Pan-Africanist. What do I mean by that? You cannot talk about this military establishment in the United States without talking about AFRICOM, the African Command in over 30 countries in Africa who are there to control the movement of the people on the African continent.
Natural resources.
That's right. So when we talk about the anti-colonial and anti-neo-colonial struggle, that's where I stand. That's where I stand.
Dr. Anthony Montero in studio. We got Brother Timothy. He's going to be the last caller of the day with a question or a comment. Thank you for waking up a word, good brother.
Both. Dr. Montero.
You got it.
I think that the Democrats will take the House, and I would like to see Maxine Waters as the Speaker.
Well, that's good, but I don't think it's inevitable. We're in a crisis of legitimacy where people who normally vote for the Democratic Party are staying at home, very much like African Americans and others did in the 2016 election. Unless there is a program that speaks to the needs of the people, Tim, and I mentioned the end of this huge military budget. Let's talk about foreign policy. Let's talk about peace. Let's talk about really the agenda of Du Bois back in the 1950s when he ran for the U.S. Senate from the state of New York and said that the first thing on the agenda is the end of nuclear weapons and end to this huge military spending. So if the Congressional Black Caucus is reelected, if the Democrats take the House back and do not take a position against war and against military spending and transferring all of those trillions that go into the military to meet the needs of the people, it will not make a difference. And I think we got to look at the substance of things rather than their form.
Dr. Montero, that is the plan, and that is also the strategy. I like that. But let's talk about Du Bois. And I'm going to say this, that not only was Du Bois a student of history, he rewrote history.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Du Bois studied the Nile Valley civilization and understood it well. If we talked about the Dravidian people in the Indus Valley, one of the wickedest things that ever happened, because they had a flourishing 35,000 year period like Nile Valley. And if you look at Nile Valley, you look at the Indus Valley and the Indus River, you can see that. But they got hit like the Greeks hit Egypt.
Yeah.
The alien invasion came to the Indus Valley, and they got hit with the most wickedest thing that there ever was, the caste system.
Yeah, but they're still reeling from the caste system today.
Yes, and that's the unfinished business of the Indian anti-colonial struggle.
Well, thank you, Brother Timothy, for your call. We always thank Dr. Anthony Montero for coming in and giving us that perspective and that outlook on Du Bois and all things political. One of the things that you discussed was about the unraveling.
Yes.
I was making a little list because I was just looking at just some of the recent things with regards to the president and the issue of Harley Davidson usually being like a symbol of, middle class or white, this is a company that always identifies like with the NASCAR crowd, and to say it in code language like they like to do. And the fact that they were going against some of the things that the president was doing, it was a real sign of the times. The tariffs that India had imposed as a result of what, we were doing with the tariff wars. It was China in a similar situation, the issues with North Korea and the breakdown of communication, on again, off again talks, the Mueller investigation with the Russian collusion, the Republican dissension. A lot of these local politicians were like, I don't know if I want to be around you. Then there was government officials discussing the enrichment of the family business.
Can I say something,
please
Aaron?
do. Yeah.
I wish that the callers could see the smile on my face
running
as
down
you
his lip?
speak. Because, the reason is because these are the issues that we need to pay more attention to.
Oh, yeah.
The question of the global economy, a lot of people say, well, I can't understand it. My point is you can understand it. And, Trump is talking about a trade war. His idea is that we want to bring jobs back to the United States. It's not going to happen that way.
Yeah.
We need jobs in the United States, but it's not going to be the Reagan trickle-down supply side.
Or the international bullying routine.
No, that's not going to happen. The way we're going to get jobs back here is, in the 1930s during the Great Depression, Franklin Roosevelt came forward with a New Deal.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't really work. It was the war that brought the nation out of the Great Depression. But we need a 21st century New Deal.
Yeah.
Rebuild the cities. Rebuild the transportation system.
So one thing I said about China.
The infrastructure.
Yeah. I said with China, I said at least they building the roads up in the schools.
That's right. There's a lot of work to be done that's not being done. A lot of people who should be working, who are not working, who are homeless, who are on the street. All of these people are in prison, by the way.
Yeah.
And these people can be put to work. That's why that military budget is so important.
Yeah.
And the military budget, government spending for health care, for jobs, for education, rebuild the country, rebuild these cities, and put black people back to work and get us out of poverty.
So you hear that? All the budding for politicians. You were just giving your platform,
hopefully,
for the way to get people to come out and vote.
That's right. That's right.
You heard the critique, but he also gave you the potential solution. So he critiqued what was going on, but if you want to galvanize people and get them enfranchised and then restructure the process in a way that people have faith in it and feel like there's some significant tangible change that could be created through our participation, then those are the type of issues that need to be paid attention to. So the next time we hear about rebuild, we need you to actually be doing some real rebuilding. We're not talking about putting up a swing set. I know a lot of item lines talk about what you're going to paint, and you're going to take out the asbestos, and you're going to put a swing set, and you're going to spend $700 million to do it. And there's no change in the curriculum. There's no additional schools being built. There's nothing to be said about greater union participation or construction with regards to African Americans. There's no new union being formed. I don't even know if we're going to fix the potholes on Broad Street.
But I can say this. Think beyond the limitations
and
boundaries that people say you're supposed to think within.
I think that's what this victory did for me. When I saw this young lady win last night, when I heard the news this morning, I said, okay, even more is possible. I'm an optimist, but now I know.
Here in Philadelphia, even.
I played her campaign ad. I said, just replace New York with Philadelphia and replace her name with yours, and you might have a shot. Take care, y'all. I am Aaron Smith, the rapping professor. She is Kwesa, the super producer. Put some respect on her name. He is Jay Scott, taking over technology co-producer. Again, special thanks to Dr. Anthony Montero for joining us in studio. Have a lovely day, y'all. We talked about all the challenges, but we talked about a lot of victories. It's unraveling. Babylon is falling, and we're going to rise like the phoenix and electric slide on the ashes. It's going to be a new day and a lovely one at that. Thank y'all for waking up with word, y'all.
And the world's all right with me. Just one look at you.